Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of Sales TV Live. Today, we're talking about choosing a sales career path intentionally. We're joined by Johnathan Pascall. Johnathan is the Global Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Buddy Healthcare and author of Sales Careers Unveiled, your guide to choosing, launching, and accelerating your B2B sales career. Johnathan, welcome.
Hi, Rob. Pleased to be here.
Great to have you. Johnathan, please tell us a little bit about you, your journey into sales, and where you are today.
Well, I think I'm just entered my 20th year in sales, which is a bit of a milestone, isn't it? It's when you realize that you're mid-career and you don't feel like you're there yet, but that's a different topic altogether. So I like the way that you'd frame this as choosing a sales career with intention, which is actually what I did. And I think I very much have bucked the trend in that I chose to go into sales. I think probably 95% of people, if you ask that question to why did you get into sales, what made you get into sales, the answer is something like, well, I don't know really, I just sort of fell into it. I chose it because I was in a slightly different situation than my father. I'd had a full career in sales and sales management and so on and so forth. So I grew up with sort of knowing what a career in sales is like from having that father who I had a great relationship with. And we would discuss it, school holidays. I would join him on, if he had a long journey to go to a meeting or something like that, I would go along with him and sit in the car, obviously, when he was in the meeting, but we'd be in the car for hours and hours and he'd be telling me all about what it was like and how things work and the highs, the lows and all that sort of stuff. And I like the sound of what I hear. Now, I didn't go straight into sales, I must add. I did investigate a few other options after university. But they didn't give me what I was looking for in a career and a way to be spending my days. So I thought, no, sales is right. Sales is for me. So I'm the person that chose a career in sales with intent.
Excellent.
That's incredibly wholesome, isn't it? A, that you chose this career path rather than just falling into it, but also the fact that you're following in your father's footsteps. There's something really charming about this, and it's something that you expect of carpenters, isn't it? My father worked with wood. I used to watch him working, and then I followed in his footsteps. And I think it's really lovely that you've gone into it with the kind of an expectation that this is a career of joy and happiness, having seen it from the inside.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's very well put, and I think there probably is a correlation, isn't there, that between what your parents did and what you go into. I think a lot of people go into teaching, have parents in teaching, and so on and so forth. So, but that doesn't seem to necessarily follow with sales, which I think is an interesting topic. But that's probably something for another day. So I really benefited. I picked the right career for me. I mean, sales isn't for everyone, but there's a lot of people that don't pick sales as a career because they've got the wrong perception of what it's like and what you need to be successful and so on and so forth. And which is a real shame, because if they did pick sales as a career or seriously consider it, they'd probably have a wonderful career and have the opportunity to get a lot from it. So that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book. It's in a way, it's trying to give to others what I had from having a father tell me all about it and just sort of being exposed to it almost by osmosis. That's very much what drove me to write the book.
So I want to pick up on what you were saying there. Who should go into sales?
Good question. I think there is no right or wrong answer to that one. I'm sort of almost lost for words on how to answer that one, because I don't think there is a type for sales. In fact, I think if anything, it's probably easier to say who shouldn't go into sales.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how well this phrase translates, but the gift of the gab, is that a transatlantic phrase? Yeah. And I've seen this. You see it all the time. It's been around for a long time. But where someone is a bit of a con artist, a bit of a shyster, and it's oh, you're really good at talking, you should go into sales. And then if you pick a salesing career and you get some sales training, the first thing you learn is that selling is all about asking questions and listening. And if you're someone who wants to keep talking and talking and talking and just loves the sound of your own voice, there might be some niche of sales which you're really well suited to. But in general, you're not going to do that well in sales compared to someone who's happy to listen, wants to solve problems, is really curious. But as for an actual type, I mean, sales is such a broad industry to work in. If you work in the chemical industry, it's a different environment. If you're selling jumbo jets, well, you won't be selling jumbo jets anymore, but airliners at least, or if you're selling factory equipment, or you're selling a certain kind of software to a very sub-niche of a sub-niche and so on. So it's almost like there's room for everyone in sales.
Sure. So how can one determine if sales is right for them?
Well, one other thing I'd add to that as well is that we talk about sales, and that tends to mean quota-carrying sales positions. But you could be someone who's from a nursing background and work in the sales function, very much like a sales role, but it's not the quota-carrying role. It's the advising or supporting the sales effort. So it's still a sales role, but it's not the whole. It doesn't carry all the things that quota-carrying sales does. So yeah, sorry. What was your question there, Rob?
It was how can one determine if sales career is the right fit for them? I think you touched on that really. We have a question from our audience. Bob Britton asks, shouldn't we define sales first? Along the lines of what you were saying, the nurse and so on. One of my favorite authors is Dan Pink. And one of the books that he wrote is To Sell is Human. In that book, he says that research indicates these days 9 out of 10 people are in sales. But he broadens the definition of sales to really mean influence, the desire to influence somebody to make a decision. So in that context, I suppose we are all in sales. But to your point, Johnathan, what you were saying earlier, I think what we're more referencing is sales in terms of quota carrying role. And what you were saying rings true for me as well as many others. I backed into it. I fell into sales. I never saw myself as a salesperson. I actually despised the thought of going into sales. Adam, you laugh, but I don't think that's uncommon, is it? What can we do to dispel the myth that Hollywood has created around sales?
Is that question for me?
That's just in general.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult if people have been so brainwashed like we all have by Death of a Salesman, The Apprentice, and all that kind of stuff. It's hard, isn't it? There are so many people. It just the thought of having to pick up the phone and cold call people, the thought of these sort of things. Yeah, it's a bit like that thing about public speaking where it comes higher than the fear of death for a lot of people. It reminds me a bit of that. I don't really have an answer to that. I don't think anyone really does, but it's a little bit what I'm trying to do is just give. In the book, I describe a few different types of sales roles and what a typical day and a typical week looks like in the morning, afternoon, and the evening. So it's a bit canned, of course. It has to be. It's a sort of semi-fictionalized, or mostly fictionalized, novelized approach. And I've tried to capture some of the highs and the great celebration. You win a great sale, it feels fantastic. Some of the lows when you lose a sale that you work really hard for. And all of the bits in between, just the day-to-day stuff that goes on. Because really, what I'm trying to do is encourage each person to make their own mind up, but based on the facts rather than the perceptions through Hollywood and so on and so forth. So trying to give people an accurate, fair description of what life is like working in sales and what a career would look like, not just a job, a career in sales would look like. And I do discuss a bit about what kind of personality traits correlate most with not just being successful in sales, but enjoying it as a career as well, because it's really important. So
that is absolutely crucial, the enjoyment bit, because so often, particularly sales, where the perception is one of people being money orientated, very money orientated. And the idea that this is something which can be fulfilling is great. And also, you said a career as opposed to job. And I think, again, a really important distinction, because so often you fall into it and, oh, yeah, my job is I do this. And then you move on to another similar job somewhere else. But actually, these are seldom viewed, I think, as a career. So you can end up spending your whole life in sales without realizing you spent your whole life in sales. And because you never planned to spend your whole life in sales, you just happen to be stuck in it. And I think that doing it with a degree of, like you've done, where there is some intention of doing it. You saw kind of the roller coaster of things going well, things going badly through your father, but also particularly in that kind of role where you have to travel to go to meetings, it can be an incredibly interesting thing to do, can't it? Not just in sales, but if you're driving across the country to go somewhere else, you get to see a bit of scenery, you get to eat in a diner or a restaurant, a little chef as it was in this country, or whatever, and all of that adds to the kind of the fact that you're not stuck in an office. And for some people, stuck in an office is not stuck in. They love the fact that they're in a consistent environment. But I guess that the key thing here is that this is about fulfillment, isn't it? This is about doing something that you enjoy doing and planning accordingly, I guess.
100%. I couldn't agree with that more. It's, and again, that's the angle I'm coming at this from. It's if you're suited for sales, or you think sales is suited for you, it offers you so much more. But it's about knowing yourself and knowing what you want, and that's the whole thing. If someone reads the book and thinks that sales isn't for me, well, great. At least they know for the price of a cup of coffee, they've found out that sales isn't the right thing for them. Is to take that off the list, and something else is for them. But yeah, fulfillment in work. Some people say they work to live or they live to work, but if you spend 40 plus hours a week in something, if you don't enjoy it, that's a big chunk of your life to spend miserable. And for most of us, that's something we have control over. So make use of it.
Yeah, but you had a uniquely privileged position, didn't you, in terms of seeing this as a career laid out in front of you? So one of the things you said there, it was, if you know yourself, yeah, well, most people don't, do they? Most people have no idea who they are.
Sure.
And I think that the even so, my father was an architect. I find architecture fascinating. I would never want to do it, primarily because you've got to study for 7 years before you get to put pen to paper. But the idea of doing that never appealed to me as a career. But I think that it's really interesting that that most people don't get the opportunity to decide that, do they? They kind of step off the precipice into the world of work, and they have no idea where they're going to end up.
Yeah, it's true, and I think schools try to help with careers advice, and there's only so far you can go with that. I absolutely agree, and I'm going to keep banging the drum for the same subject, but it's like I was saying at the start. So many people just don't even consider seriously a career in sales other than to dismiss it, and I just think that's such a tragedy, because it does offer so much, and it's usually so much not what people think it's going to be. And the thing is as well that I really advocate for in a career in sales is how much you get from it in terms of personal growth. Like you were saying before, if you're going to drive or going to fly to whatever halfway across the country, it's all down to you, isn't it? It's particularly for young people. You've got to get yourself organized. You've got to set a meeting. You've got to decide what you're going to take with you. You've got to get yourself there. You've got to organize the whole thing, because you've got to be there on time, in the right frame of mind, prepared, because it doesn't matter how long a journey is, all of a sudden you thrust in front of the customer and it's showtime, and it doesn't matter what's happened. If your flight got cancelled and delayed, your dog died, it's sort of, oh, that's a shame, but don't really care. Present to us, and and it's if you don't do a great job, you might not get what you want from it. So it's huge amount of personal growth opportunities from it, and it does make you a pretty independent, strong character before very long.
So given that you've spent your entire working life in sales, what advice would you give to your young self? Because I've made so many countless mistakes in my career, and part of that is, and I see it with my own kids, which is they already know the answer, and to be open and go, actually, I don't know the answer, and to be able to say, I don't understand, Johnathan. Can you explain that again, or can you help me with this? So what advice would you give to somebody that's toying with this as a possibility for their career?
About whether or not they should go into sales?
Well, the things that you would have said to yourself, like your top 5 things that you've learned from a career in sales, that if you'd thought at the beginning you were going to be in it, that you would now go back and remap, if you like.
I would definitely be telling myself to find more mentors in whichever organization I've joined, particularly higher up. I say that for a few reasons. One is the best way. I love learning from books and courses and things like that. But ideal way is learning from someone who can show you, who can, in real life, demonstrate, talk to you, work with you personally. And if it's, so you can find that through external coaching, that is brilliant. But if it's someone at your own company, it's contextual, isn't it? It's they understand where you are, what you're trying to do, what the company does, etc., etc. And I didn't do that at all, quite honestly. Not really, nowhere near to the extent I could have done. It's also great for career growth. If that's something that's that you're keen on to get to a certain position within a company or whatever, that certainly can help with that as well. And I didn't do that, and I really wish that I had done. That's probably the biggest thing that springs to mind, actually, Adam. Not just it reminds me of something. A big lesson from my old man, which I did not really action or take advantage of, was that he always used to tell me this story. He worked for Texaco in the 70s. It was his first sales job, and his manager said to him, "Look, get this straight. It doesn't. Don't think you'll get on in this company just by being good at your job." And I always made that mistake of taking a bit of a Boy Scout attitude, that if I just really work as hard as I can and do as well as I can do, people will notice, and magically I'll be sort of elevated up, and I think it does happen to some people, but it's never happened to me, and it doesn't happen to most people. You occasionally do hear stories of that happening. I think that, and they're the lucky ones, and it's it's not a good policy to pursue. So yeah, that would be the advice I'd give myself.
Yeah, I mean, with my kids, particularly with my daughter, I always stress to her the importance of saying to people that you would like something. I would really like this opportunity, and her view, and I think most people, young people's view, is, well, I've gone for the job, so clearly I would like it. But actually, when you say to someone, I would really like to work with you, Johnathan, it's incredibly compelling to say that, isn't it? And yeah, this idea that you need to network yourself within your own organization. You need to ask people for help. Me as an old person, if a young person says to me, "I'd really like you to help me with this," I'm kind of feel duty bound to help them, as will the, and I get a huge amount from doing it when I do it. And it would have been exactly the same for me. But like you, I didn't knock on the managing director's door and say, "I'm new here. Hello. I would love to make a career in this company. What do I need to do? How can you help me?" And most people are amenable to that, aren't they?
I definitely agree. And you may have 1 or 2 years on me age-wise, but
Yeah, 1 or 2.
but I think I'm old enough now and sort of look old enough that I'm one of the old guys now. And certainly when younger people come to me and ask for help, then it's exactly like you described there. I'm super keen and really enjoy the process, and it's really nice to be asked as well. So it's funny, isn't it? We're both. It's funny.
Yeah, and I guess that when you start at a company, and I guess thinking about this idea of the things that I should have told myself, I should have said to myself, this isn't a gig for a year. This is your career until you make it otherwise. And I think that the challenge that all of us have, and you said about some people, your book trying to show people the highs and lows so they can make an informed decision about whether or not this is the right kind of career for them. That I think the challenge for all of us is that we start at a company or in a role, and then we stay in that company or the role until something changes. So I'm happy to stay here for a year or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20, actually, and I will stay here until something forces me to change. So my boss leaves, therefore I've got an opportunity for a promotion, or a job comes up over there, or the company gets into difficulties, or I get fired, or whatever the thing is, and then that facilitates the change. And actually, it's lazy, and it's a complete lack of mindfulness about where I'm going. And if I'd wound back to like the very first job I had and thought, I'm going to be in this job until I retire, so let's plan on that basis. And that's probably quite a smart way to begin, isn't it? Because then you are setting off with the kind of the right aspirations and the right ideas for how you can try to control your destiny.
Yeah, it's a little bit starting with the end in mind principle, I guess. And at least that way you've got something to pursue, and then when you get there, or you're on that pathway there, you're learning stuff, aren't you? Because you're moving more quickly because you've got a target in mind. You can realize halfway through, actually, that target is not valid anymore for me for whatever reason, life events, or from what I've learned and who I've become in the process. That's just not appealing anymore. That's fine. That's what you want, isn't it? That's how you evolve as a person.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm sure you see it all the time as well. But I see that 9/10 of people that I come into contact with in a work environment are not happy with the job they've got or the company they're working at, and yet they choose not to do anything about it. And I think that one of the things that I always advise when I'm working with less experienced people is, when you start your new job, you've got this finite window of opportunity to be anything you want to be before they have forced you into the pigeonhole that they think you fit into. And during that period, you can do anything. You can ask stupid questions and no one will laugh at you and say you're stupid because you didn't know the answer, because you knew it. So of course you don't know the answer. And you can carve out your niche in any way you see fit. And then the longer you stay there, the more you become, oh, it's Johnathan. Yeah, he's responsible for A, B, and C. But he wants to do a bit of, no, he doesn't do D. He does A, B, and C. And it's like you get so typecast, don't you? And this idea that, yeah, I'll have a go at that. It's a really positive thing for people.
Yeah. In fact, you reminded me of something else, which is interesting. It's not necessarily something I would change when I was younger, but, going back to your early question, that I've got myself into a position where I've never said no to anything, because I've always thought that the more you say yes, the more additional responsibility you take on, the more extra time you spend, on non-extracurricular sort of activities. It's all part of this being a good employee, working hard, doing the right thing, but also hoping there's going to be a reward that comes from it also.
Yeah.
Not only does it normally not come with a reward, and I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from doing the right thing or even saying what I did was wrong, but it can put you in an awkward position where that then becomes, like you were just saying, that then becomes the expected norm from you, that you're effectively going to be doing a 60-hour work week just because you've kept doing it, and not said no and not complained about it. And then if you have an off week and you only do the 40 hours, it's like, oh, what's this lazy guy doing?
Well,
I don't know what the lesson is, Renee, but you just reminded me of it.
yeah, no, but it's a really, because that happened exactly to me. I met my wife at work, and we were at this company, and we used to work really, really long weeks. And 1 week we'd been there until probably 10 p.m. every single night. And on Friday, we were going away for the weekend. And on Friday, we had agreed that I was going to leave at midday to go and pick up a hire car, to come back to pick up my wife in order that we could go away for the weekend. And I didn't leave until 4 in the end, and got the hire car, took came and picked my wife up. We went away, had a lovely weekend, came back Monday morning. I had to drop the hire car back off at the hire car place. And when I arrived at the office, the managing director said, "You're taking the piss, aren't you? You've stolen time both ends of the weekend," with absolutely no acknowledgement of the fact that there was sort of 6 hours extra done every night that week. And yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? You know, it becomes the norm.
Really motivating, isn't it, when your boss tells you that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really gets the most out of you.
Yeah.
Johnathan, this has been great. How can people learn more, and where can they get in touch with you?
There's 2 things. My book is available on amazon.com.co.uk. It's available on most of the Amazons, so there'll be a local copy available. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited still, which means you can get it for free if you're a member of that scheme. If you want to talk with me, shoot me an invite on LinkedIn. I accept all invites. And if you want to talk, just send me a message. I'm very happy to speak to everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You can scan the QR code on screen or visit us at SalesTV.live and click on newsletter. This has been another edition of Sales TV Live. On behalf of the panelists and everyone here at Sales TV, to our guest Johnathan, to our audience, thank you all for being an active part in today's conversation, and we'll see you next time.